Welcome to Dive Beyond Sport. I'm Yona Night Wisdom.
And I'm Freddie Woodward. In each episode, we speak to athletes to discover their identity, value, and excellence. Dive. This isn't about medals, results, or records. It's about the people behind the performance. Today's guest is someone who knows all about pressure, purpose, and comeback. She's an Olympic gold and bronze medalist, a mental health advocate, and now a coach and entrepreneur. It's former Team GB hockey star, Shona McCallin.
Shona,
good morning. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for the intro, and really looking forward to the conversation that we've got ahead of us.
Thank you for joining us. Let's dive into it, shall we? I want you to picture yourself back in the Olympic final. So this is a chance for you to kind of share a bit of context about who you are and what you've achieved. What was the last thing that you said to yourself before stepping onto the pitch?
You're testing my memory here now, Yona. That was nearly 10 years ago now. I can't remember what I did last week. Well, I joke, but I do remember Rio really vividly.
Yeah.
The whole experience was amazing, and to come out with that gold medal was something which we thought, we hoped, we believed, but we didn't, to actually do it was something else. So the night before the final, I remember we had a meeting, and it was all about simply just enjoying it. How many people? The question was asked: how many people get to play in an Olympic final? Not many.
Yeah.
Really, not many. So make the most of this opportunity. The team that we were playing, Holland, had a fantastic reputation. They were number one in the world. They were clear favourites, but we took ourselves back to when we played them, I think 6 weeks before. We drew when we beat them. We'd beaten them the year before in 2015 in a final as well, and knew that probably that was sat in the backs of their minds a little bit. And then I remember one of my teammates just saying, look, Sho, there's just hockey players just like us. It's the same game that we've been playing for so many years. They're going to be feeling the same. We're so prepared. We're so ready. Just go out and take it all in and just enjoy it. And that was the main message for us all. Like, all the hard work was done, right? It was all done. We were so well prepared. So it was, as cliche as it sounds, it was just about enjoying it. Wow.
But I mean, you did. I remember that moment actually so clearly. You really took the nation, the UK by storm. Obviously, it was an incredible performance. But obviously, Yona mentioned that our kind of loose framework to this is identity is one of the kind of core things that we sort of look at here, because that's I think a big talking point for athletes, certainly for me. And so I suppose I'm kind of curious, like, how being like the Olympic gold medal winning women's hockey team that everyone was talking about, and like how did that kind of affect your identity? Did you did that really become like who you were, or did you ever sort of push against that, or what's the sort of story for your like identity connected with hockey?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. One side of the coin, it's great. Like, it's from a sporting point of view, it really elevated the sport. Everyone was talking about it. That's what we all want. We want the sport of hockey to be in the mainstream, and it was for a bit. And so from that point of view, it was great. The sport got recognition. The athletes got recognition. There were so many opportunities that we got off the back of it. Just amazing experiences. So just for myself, I went to LA for 5 days with Headspace and did some like filming and shooting with Headspace, which was just, a year ago. Wow. That wasn't going to be on the cards, was it? So there was so many great things that happened from it, like amazing. We were, there was barely a day or a week that none of the hockey girls were on TV, on radio, Jonathan Ross, Christian Sport, like Channel 5, we were everywhere, which was amazing. I do. Yeah. And also what was so great for me, and I really, really loved this part of it, was going out to all the schools and clubs. So hockey clubs, and also schools, and, that the moment when you get the medal out, that is gold dust. So when you've got 5, 6, 7-year-olds going, well, is that real? And that was amazing. Yeah. Now fast forward probably to like March 2017, so a good 6 months later, 6 to 9 months later, I was ready to move on from it then. You know, it was a new cycle, it was a new team, we were looking forward, we weren't looking back, we weren't, from a hockey point of view, we weren't going, oh, well, we did this at Rio, so we've got to do this now, and we are the Rio Olympic champions. Now it was about looking forward, it was a new group, but lots of the work that I was doing outside of sport was still taking me back to Rio. And so I remember, like, it must have been like April, May, March time, whatever, just thinking, I'm so done with talking about it. I'm so done. Like, I'd probably done upwards of 200 school assemblies. Like, it was crazy. And I was just like, I want to look forward now. I want to move on. I want to be part of, looking in the future. So yeah, that was a bit tough, for sure. And then, I've had it my whole life, right? So it didn't really change much, but it was always, oh, this is Shona, she's a hockey player. This is Shona, she went to the Olympics and won a gold medal with Team GB, which is an amazing achievement, and I'm so proud of it. But I'm also Shona the sister, Shona the daughter, Shona the cousin, and when you've heard that 50, 60, 70 times, sometimes I'm like, yeah, but what about me, just me, So, but I get it. Yeah. I do get it.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Our identities are rooted in our sports, and that's what it creates amazing opportunities. But as you say, it's kind of what we've had for our entire lives. And I kind of get exactly what you mean. Every time you talk to someone, just because you've been to the Olympics, they have so many questions about that. And it always happens with me where I'm speaking to someone and they are asking me about the Olympics, and I feel like I'm just talking about me. And I ask them, what do they do? And they're like, oh, there's nothing compared to the Olympics. I'm like, no, you still do something that's obviously very valuable, and you still do something positive and good. Like at least back yourself and go with it. But it happens every single time. So there's sometimes a time, like you say, where I almost wish that it wasn't a thing, where I could actually just talk about other things rather than just telling the same stories over and over again. But at the same time, those stories are so inspiring for many people, and it's who we are, so we kind of have to embrace it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's, on one hand, it's so inspiring, and I get it. If I was on the other side as a sports mad person and I met someone who'd been to the Olympics, I would want to know. But I think when that person's been asked, 50 times the same question already in that day, it's a bit like, oh.
Yeah. To take you back into that Olympic final moment, you mentioned that the Netherlands were ranked world number one, and they were maybe the favourites going into that game. Would you say?
Yeah, I think they were the favourites. They were world number one. They were pretty dominant. I know we, as England, we'd beaten them the year before in the European Championships. So it was the first time we'd won that gold medal. Yeah. They were definitely favourites. Not in our head, but for the outside world, they were.
Yeah. Love it.
Well, that's a really key thing that you say, not in your head. You have to have that really deep-rooted confidence that you can, go out there and actually do what you need to do and win it. Where does that confidence come from for you? I know it's a team sport, and you got to move as a team and win as a team, but obviously you're an individual cog in that machine. So where does that confidence come from for you?
For me personally, as an individual athlete in a team sport, confidence comes from preparation. Being as prepared as you can be to know that you've done everything you can and you're ready. So often when I go and speak to schools, I try and relay the message from sport into something that they can relate to, which is often academics, right? You know, now May, June, they all go through exams, and it's like the confidence that you have walking into an exam, if you've revised for 6 weeks for it, done it all, and actually the last 2 days you're kind of like, well, I've gone over it and over and over it, I'm ready. Whereas the confidence that you have walking into an exam, if you start revising 2 days before, is going to be very different. And it's the same with playing sport. So confidence comes from doing consistently the right things. So making sure that you're giving it all in your training, making sure you're recovering, making sure you're on it with your nutrition, making sure you're asking the questions of what you need to do to improve, to be better. And that's consistency over time. And then from an individual point of view as well, on top of that is also reflecting and learning. So I'd always reflect after training and matches and just write down a couple things. And then from a team point of view, we worked so hard on gelling as a team, getting to know each other, preparing for everything. So we had kind of every scenario all planned out, and that came from the work that we did on the training field. So for example, we knew what we needed to do if we were 2-0 down with a player down with 10 minutes to go and we needed to win, for example. We knew what we needed to do if, the captain got hit in the knee and she's out for the rest of the tournament, then what the process is. We knew what the processes were if we were going to go to shootouts, which they did, and what happened there and what exactly the process, because we were prepared for it. And that was all the work done with the staff. They went into so much detail, and also the players buying into that together and wanting to learn and to be part of that. And it was definitely a whole group process to get to that point. I've said this before, like the only thing we didn't prepare for was like winning, like what happened after winning, but we prepared for everything else, like literally everything. So it was just after winning we were like, now what do we do? So yeah, it comes from consistency, preparation for me.
That's a hilarious complex. That's cool.
That's great. But I mean, after that, there's so much that I'd love to unpack, but I think, one thing I definitely want to talk about is the team element and that sort of like team frame of mind you guys seem to sort of cultivate. But also, I just want to ask now, actually, something that I'm really kind of interested in is you mentioned sort of earlier on about the going to like work with Headspace, and you just said about one thing you do after every practice was journaling and reflecting. And so I think, there's so much to unpack, but if you could just sort of maybe talk about your kind of journey with journaling and so on, and even, touch on a bit of the sort of meditation side of things, and where that kind of fit into sport, but also, in life in general, and maybe how that's kind of helped you.
Yeah, sure. So it started, growing up, I was always a perfectionist. Always wanted to be the best. If I played a really good match and I made one mistake, that one mistake would go round and round and round in my head. And I'd kind of had this mindset, and it was fine. Like I was still performing, I was still good. And then when I got into the senior squad at like 22, then it started to kind of like eat me up a bit. And I noticed like I needed to like change this, because I was confronted with it every day. I was training every day. I was a small fish in a big pond. I was one of the youngest there, my least experienced. And I knew I had to do something. And so we had this amazing psychologist who worked with the team called Dr. Andrea First, who did wonders for the team and also for me personally. And I'm still in touch with her now as a friend. And we did like a bit of a project together. And one thing was to help me like raise my confidence levels. Coming in as a younger player, always feeling like they're failing because they weren't having the perfect session. Like, who has the perfect session? Nobody. Know that now, age 33. And so what we did was we worked really hard together and kind of came up with like my super strengths. So what can Shona deliver consistently on the pitch? What are her main things that she is really good at? And what I would do, I'd have them in a spreadsheet, good old Excel, have that in a spreadsheet, and after every session, I would like rate how well I thought I did, 1 to 10. And then what I would also do is I would have another bit, which is 3 things I did well that session and 3 things I wanted to improve. Could be 2, could be 1, but the rule was that it had to be equal, because otherwise I would go, these are 700 things I want to do better, and here's 1 thing I did well. So they just had to be equal. And I did that consistently for, a good 3 to 4 months, like every session. And then it maybe went to like every 2 sessions. But what that did is that just built like an awareness for me of where I was, my mindset. It was almost always like money in the bank in terms of confidence. And it enabled me to focus on the things which I'm there for, which are like my super strengths. I was never the flashy player. I was never someone that would run past 4 people and, you know, make the crowd go, woo. Like, so why would I bother trying to do that? You know, focus on those things which got me there and make them even better. And then also, you know, focus on a couple things which I know I need to get better at, whether that's be myself or through conversations with coaches, through like individual development plans, and real focus on those. So once we did that, that was great and got me into a really like good routine. And then what I would do as well with Andrea is I would kind of set session goals. And I was really reluctant to do that at the start, because I was like, well, what if the session doesn't like meet my goal? So let's say my goal would be like to score 4 goals. What if there wasn't the opportunity for me to score 4 goals in a session? And that would be a stupid goal for me anyway, because I think I scored like 4 goals in my whole career. But it would, then we changed it to like process goals. So like a goal would be to, for example, body language on the pitch. Whenever I'm on the pitch, my shoulders are back and I'm looking tall and ready. Even inside, if I was like, oh, I'm hitting this session, but that was my goal. It doesn't matter what the session is, I can do that. And so we went to like process goals, and just
hit that regardless.
Checked in with her, checked in with myself, with how they were going. And then the next step to that was to share those with other people. And then that was hard for me, because then I felt like I was like giving a piece away, and I was then becoming really vulnerable. But I did do it. And was it scary? Initially, yeah, but actually like the level of trust that we had in that team, it was great, and other people would do the same. So that's kind of how that journey started. And yeah, during that period as well, I came across Headspace. This was back in like 2014, I think. And I always like struggled to sleep, like the brain was just whirring. So I used to listen to it before I went to bed. And as a person, I'm pretty thrifty, pretty tight. And so I only used the free plan, which was like the 10 sessions. So I used the same 10 sessions for like 2 years. I didn't pay for anything else. And then I remember in like one of the members, someone who worked for Headspace, got in contact and was like, oh, I think actually it was actually Andy, who was like, he's the founder, who's the voice, I think. And then he was like, what's really surprising is just use those 10 sessions. And I was like, yeah, it was too tight to pay, I don't know, £10 a month for any more. And then that's where it came about. And then went over to Rio, went over to LA, sorry. It was with, I think Tom Daly went over, he was at a different time to me. And also, oh my goodness, he was a rugby sevens captain.
Yeah. I mean, I actually remember Tom. I remember actually Tom doing Headspace in the build up to Rio. Actually, now you mentioned his name, so that's so interesting. And then just on a personal note, what you're talking about with like the rating each session and making sure you had to balance the good and the bad. I just think, I know that for me, like as a strategy, that would have been so powerful, because I think I share a lot of the a lot of the overthinking that you were kind of talking about, Shona, and I could easily spiral after a session and just think about come up with 1,000 things that I did wrong, and it would like ruin the rest of my day, and I would let it do that. And even now, like completely away from sport, like journaling and also, just gratitude in general. That's something I try and end every day with now. And it's so powerful. So I think if I'd have done that more with my sport, I think that really would have helped me. So it's really interesting to hear that, like from your side.
Yeah, Shona, everything you said in that was like super valuable advice, because first of all, using the headspace with the 10 sessions or the 10 lessons, it shows that it doesn't need to be complicated. It can be simple. You can just do the simple thing over and over and over again, and if you are consistent with it, it can create something really positive in the long term because of the compound effect. But what you did is actually something very similar to what I did in the build up to Paris 2024. I was struggling with my confidence and I needed to improve my self-belief, and it's funny how similar it is, but kind of a different input. You did your rating after each session. I kind of rated each day, and I'd have like a printed sheet stuck up on my wall, one for each day for 3 months up until the games, and I'd rate the day out of 10. For the next day, I'd write a goal for the day, and it could be something as simple as taking the bins out, because I knew that my home life had to be as on point as possible to allow me to be comfortable and confident at training, because all of that has an impact. So I'd give myself a daily goal, and then at the end of the day, I'd kind of explain the outcome of that goal. Like, did I take the bins out? Yes, great, well done. 9 out of 10 day, you did great. Or like, aim to rip this one particular dive in training. Did you do that? No, it was a terrible session, 2 out of 10. But what that allowed me to do, and what I think it did the same for you, was it, one, keeps you accountable. It kind of reduces the negative effect of a bad day, because you see that it's one in a group of just like solid 6 or 7 out of 10 days, which is not a bad thing at all. And I think it just slowly helps you to build that confidence, and that mindset is a super strong thing as an athlete. So that would have been super valuable for you, I can imagine. For you and some of the injuries that you experienced in hockey, did you have something similar in place? Was that done beforehand or was that done afterwards? And how did that kind of mindset help you through your injuries?
Yeah, injuries, the word which no athlete wants to hear, but every athlete probably does hear. Yeah, I was, some say unlucky with injuries, but for me, they taught me so much, and I wouldn't be the person I am without them, as cliche as it sounds. And yeah, I learned so much. So I think I was pretty much full-time with GB for 10 years, and for about 4.5 years of that time I was out injured, not in one go but cumulatively. So it was a long time out injured. The longest was 18 months, which was not a fun time in my life, but like I said, they all taught me a lot. I think a real turning point for me when it came to injuries was I had an ankle injury, and I went into the intensive rehab unit at Bisham Abbey, which is the British Olympic unit. So it houses or caters for maximum 3 athletes. There's real detail. You have, I think 6, 7, 8 staff for 3 athletes, and it's really like intensive rehab. And that taught me a lot about mindset around injuries. Taught me a lot about routine, doing the pre-hab stuff, and consistency. So the mindset piece was definitely about having that identity away from sport, making sure there's fun things to look forward to in the calendar. You're not just an athlete. And on the injury type of side of things, I was like, well, training starts at 9, so I'll get there at 5 to 9. That's fine. And they wanted you in at 7:30 because then you could do your extras and stuff that you need to do. But I was like, why am I doing that? Like, training starts at 9. And that just like flipped a switch. So, I was always someone that was in early, pre-training, getting the body ready, doing extra bits, consistently doing extra bits from the back of that. Injuries, what can you say about them? they're part and parcel of being a professional athlete, right? Touch wood, I've not had any since I retired, so that's great.
Yeah, that was one of my reasons for retiring. When I did, I thought I'm relatively in one piece, so maybe I should just like cash in my chips now before before I do something really stupid. But I think that, you know, just I think knowing a little bit now about your story, Shona, I do think obviously the injury side of things, like the mental toughness you've shown, to me feels really impressive. I think I read somewhere online about you, is it like describing like the brain as a muscle and kind of like, you know, training, is that right? Like training the mind as if it were a muscle in terms of resilience and stuff. So like that, you know, that struck me as really interesting, particularly from a young age, I think. And then, you know, it was a really serious concussion, right, that took you out for those 18 months. But then what is so impressive to me is like that's bookended by extreme success on the one side, like prior to that was the Rio gold, right? And then you have this year and 18 months of nothing, and then you come back, help the team qualify for Tokyo, and then win a bronze medal in Tokyo. And so I don't know, it strikes me that there is some real kind of resilience going on there. And so, you know, kind of, was there anything, like, were there things beyond what you were talking about with the journaling and so on? Were there things beyond that particularly helped you with injury setbacks, with your mindset, like just, you know, I give up? Because, you know, your road to recovery, particularly through the concussion was, you know, I think a lot of people would have probably called it a day there. So, yeah.
It's a really good question. We're going quite deep now, aren't we? I think I've always been like a doer, so I just do things. And that's huge. Part of me was like, well, of course I'm just going to do the rehab because that's what I do. I do things, and I don't give up, and I don't like to give up. And even if, you know, there's been times where I should have probably stopped doing something, whether it be, you know, where I was living or what I was doing. And I was like, no, because I've signed up to this. I've signed a contract for a year, so I'm going to do it for a year. And that's probably bitten me in the arse before, whereas actually I should have just gone, nah, this is not for me. And I need to just stop. But I think during those rehabs, I was like, well, of course I'm just going to do it. And I always felt really supported, and I had good staff around me. And I have and always advocate for always having a life away from your sport. So I never lived with hockey people intentionally. I never did. I always had friends outside of my sport intentionally. So I was always able to, I guess, escape from the rehab, from not being able to be playing. I've always had a very different life away from hockey, so family life. That's always been deep rooted in me. So family-wise, like, grew up on a farm, very different to being a hockey player.
Wow.
You know, family keep me very grounded. When I come home, I'm Shona do the dishes, Shona, like, very, very grounded. They care, but they don't really care, if that makes sense. Like, they just want, you know, me and the rest of the family to be happy and healthy. And that's always been like the family motto, is just being happy and healthy. Wow. So all those things, being a doer, having an identity away from sport, feeling well supported, you know, being, supported by family. I think all of those things kind of point into the reasons why I didn't give up. And just the ethos of hard work. Like I said, family's always been a doer. They've always been doing things, like, whether it be out on the farm, you know, up in the morning, out till late. Like, we're doers. We which has its advantages, but also disadvantages as well. But in this scenario, I guess for me, it worked, right?
Yeah, it strikes me as a really powerful, that was the first kind of response you gave to that. And I don't know, that just, maybe this is just with where I'm at now and what I'm trying to like implement in my life more, but I think that really struck me as powerful, because I don't know, I feel like it applies to lots of things. Overthinking is just never really useful. At least in my, and I've been so excellent.
Definitely not in diving. Not in diving at all. So yeah, I think, the action, as you said, is just kind of helps. I think it was, I heard this on a different podcast, but it was about like if you're lost in the jungle or a desert or something, the worst thing you can do is just stay still. But if you move, doesn't matter what direction, even if it's the slightly wrong direction, it will give you information about where you are. And so rather than just like sitting and maybe in your case, you think like, wow, I've had a really serious injury and I'm having like these issues now, and I could imagine like, you just kind of spiral there, but it's not really helpful, is it? But if you just keep moving, just keep doing, like it strikes me as a really powerful way to pull you out of that. So that's some very solid advice, I would say.
Oh, Yona, how good is this episode so far?
Mate, it's unreal, but if it's so good, why are we interrupting?
Well, we've got to tell them a couple of things, remember?
Yeah, how silly of me. Come join us on Patreon, where you can contribute to the success of this podcast while gaining closer access to the sporting stars that we speak to.
By subscribing, you can get early access to ad-free episodes, shout out in the credits, extended interviews, unfiltered chats between Yona and I, and live Q&As.
Sounds pretty good. You can get 50% off your first month if you sign up before August 31st. So you can get all of that for the price of a cup of coffee. The Patreon is linked below, and you'll also find a link to 20% off store-wide with Budget Smuggler.
But anyway, enough of that. Let's get back to the episode, shall we?
All right, let's go.
Did you feel like you talked about the fact that it improved, you grew because of it. So what did it really teach you? Like when you maybe came back after that, after everything you've had throughout all of your career, you came back, you're going in again. Like how did you feel like you were maybe stronger in that moment because of that?
I think it reinforced how important it is to have something outside of your sport and have that balance, for sure. And it also reinforced to me how lucky we are to do the sport that we love every single day. And it also reinforced how grateful you should be when you wake up pain-free and be able just to go for a run if you want to, a walk, and to not have a headache, and to be able to go to coffee, to be able to plan something, because all those things were taken away from me.
Wow.
And those things really like deeply instilled in me.
New perspective.
All of that I totally relate to. I played paddle a couple of days ago for the first time, and turns out my body didn't enjoy the change of direction. I woke up the next morning with a very stiff back, and I was like, "Oh, this is what injuries are like." And it made me think, you know what? Thank God I'm not a professional athlete anymore, because the stress of not knowing whether you were going to wake up with an injury or wake up with a stiff back, or how it's going to affect your training, having that freedom is wonderful, first of all. So that's great. But it sounds like, you grew up with and have a very strong set of values, which has guided your life. And to be honest, with those values, finding a sport like hockey, it almost feels inevitable that you would have found some kind of success in it. But how does that now transfer into life after sport? How does that excellence, the 1% every single day, the commitment, the doing, non-stop, regardless of the situation, how does that now transfer into your life as a former athlete?
Yeah, probably I'm still on that journey. And I probably need to learn just to tone it down a bit, and just to be okay with not going at 100 miles an hour and not striving for complete excellence in everything that I do. and enjoy the slower pace of life, and enjoy, if I want to go for a run, I don't need to go and have my heart rate sitting at 190 for 4 minutes intervals times 6, and I can just go and plod for 40 minutes, and I can walk if I get tired, and that's okay. So I'm probably just toning it down a bit, like certainly with some things I think are non-negotiables for me. So like the effort and the detail that I put into my work is non-negotiable. That's similar to the effort and detail that I put into hockey. But outside of work, and just looking after me as a person, it's nice to dial that down a bit and have a bit more relaxation and freedom, and learning not to feel guilty for that, and also learning not to compare myself to how I was 3 years ago when I was in full-time training. So I'm still on that journey. I'm still learning. But yeah, there's definitely like I say, non-negotiables, which I don't want to dial back on.
So, what are, just to be like maybe kind of clear then, what are those non-negotiables?
When it comes
what do you think is the most
my
important
work
stuff
life,
to really nail? Sorry.
Yeah. So for me, being prepared is a big one, which then helps my confidence with what I'm doing, what I'm delivering, whether it's my work. So I'm assistant coach of England under 18 girls hockey at the moment. So what I'm delivering with them, with the coaching team, or some other jobs that I do, I work in sport, but behind the scenes, more marketing, communications. It just helps my quality of work. Another non-negotiable is just being a good person. Manners is a big one. Being polite. I've come from a team sport. I've come from a humble family where no one is better than anybody, and the same in a team sport. In the best teams that I've worked in, nobody is better than anybody else. Doesn't matter if you've got 100 caps or 50 caps or 2 caps. Your opinion matters. Your opinion is valued. So that's something that's really high up, and I definitely struggle when that's not the case, and that's something I'm working on. So those 2 things are really important to me, and also enjoying what you're doing. So work hard, but also play hard as well. So making sure that you're laughing every day. You've got something in the diary. You're not just working all day. You've got some fun things to do. Those are kind of 3 big ones for me.
What do those fun things look like for Shona right
now? It varies. Depends on what mood I'm in. I do enjoy a beer. So a couple of beers and some good chats with people is great. I'm not the 3 a.m.er anymore. But a couple of drinks and some good conversations with people definitely helps. Some sort of exercise can also help. So you mentioned park run before. Do love a park run. So doing that. Got some nieces and nephews in my life nowadays. So getting around them is always quite fun because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm really content with just being around good people. We don't have to do anything special, but I've got, 4 or 5 amazingly close friends. And being in the company of 1 or 2 of them is all I need. We could be sat next to a waist tip and we'd still have a good time. Like just having that conversation and connection with someone is important to me.
And they're all like key values from being in the team sport as well, just having good people around you, because that's, I think, the best way to enjoy life. And that's also the reason why I don't feel like I'm ready to leave the diving world yet, because I enjoy the community of it. I enjoy the vibes, but as you mentioned, it's very important to have things outside of it. You can have that separation from that world, so you're not too caught up in it, because, I asked the question before about what excellence looks like now, and you're trying to kind of tone it down, which is actually a really, really, really hard thing to do, because when it's so ingrained in you over such a long period of time, it's just the way that you live. It's just your everyday. It's just your natural behavior. So to break that down is a tough journey to go on, and I'm kind of almost there. I'm trying to figure out how which parts I can break down and when. And actually, it makes my girlfriend really frustrated, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I really need to just maximize my rest, and she's like, what are you resting for? You're not even an athlete anymore. And she's still like a professional athlete, so it doesn't make sense. And then I'm like, oh, I realize I'm not an athlete. I can actually just chill. I can go out and go for dinner, whatever, just on a random Monday night, because I don't have to be on my game the next morning. But those lessons from sport are invaluable, that no one else can learn unless you go through that process. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from the sport, that whether you're speaking to an athlete or not, what's the biggest lesson that you think a person could learn from your experience in sport?
I think it's enjoy the process. So making sure you're enjoying the people that you're with and the environment that you're in. And if you're not, is there ways that can be altered or changed, or you can help contribute to that in a positive way? Because otherwise, I don't think it's worth it. I've been asked a good number of times, what would you rather, be in a team which you really, really loved and felt valued and felt a part of and felt listened to and felt together working towards something, togetherness was a huge thing, and finish 6th at the Olympics? Or would you rather be part of a team that won the Olympics, but you hated, really, and you just did it because you were doing it? And I was always the former, being part of a good team that's together. I've had conversations with athletes that, they just want to get to the Olympics. That's their aim. They just want to get to the Olympics. And it just makes alarm bells sound in my head, because I'm just it's not going to make you happy. You can kill yourself for this.
It's so true.
Wow.
And you get to the Olympics, and you then, do what you do at the Olympics, and then you go, oh, it's honestly, it's really not worth it. I know a couple of athletes that have been to 2-3 Olympics, and they're not happy. So that's why, going back to the original point, is you've got to enjoy the process of it. There's no point being an unhappy person getting to the Olympics. Putting it really simply, the spotlight is on you and your sport for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You get a load of memories and you get a load of kit, and then unless you're one of the probably 10 people afterwards where it's you're the stars of it. So for example, I'd say the hockey team was that. We were a flagpole of it, whatever the word is, forgotten. We were a big part of it, an Adam Peaty, some people that win gold medals or do exceptionally well and connect with the audience. Unless you're one of those, you're back at home on your own, oh, now what? And I'm speaking from my experience. That kit that you really wanted, it's amazing. I've given most of mine away to friends, family. The rest of it's up in my loft.
Exactly.
But what I do carry around with me,
that's such a good point.
is the memories and the feelings and the journey it took to get to that point. That's most important. So that's the biggest learning for me, I think.
That's an amazing, I don't know, I think that's an amazing point to make, actually. And again, from my side. One thing I struggled with after Rio was like, so I was obviously so proud to be there, and I finished 19th. It was a solid performance, but it wasn't like groundbreaking, right? You know, and I was just nudged out of the semi-finals. It was a bit like, that was disappointing, but I was, you know, I was overall happy because like I didn't bottle it, but it wasn't like wow, but like solid. But I had this like feeling of almost kind of embarrassment really around that somehow. Like I was afraid to like really say to people like I finished 19th. But one thing that stuck with me massively is afterwards we had our annual like post Olympics kind of review meetings with like the British diving management, and I was told from the management that at least a couple of people from across the diving team, and this is an individual sport pretty much, right? Again, across the whole, there was I think 10 of us or 11 across like the men and the women in the Olympic team, and some feedback I got was that me being on the team really contributed to the success of the team as a whole. Like at that time, it was the most successful diving team we'd ever had, and at least a couple of the athletes had said that we were so glad that Freddie was on the team, and that is actually, I think, what I'm most proud of when I think about the whole thing. You know, that still like really sort of strikes me. So it kind of just came to mind. You know, when you were talking about that, Shona. But I just wanted to ask about you said like you compared like being on a team that say finishes 6th in the Olympics, but you love the team, or being in a team that you don't really like, but you win the Olympic gold medal. But then what I couldn't help but think though, is it kind of feels to me like you were on a team that did both, you know? And so like what like that's incredible. And B, what were those team values? Or like, why was that team so successful? What were the values that you guys really stuck to create that incredible environment for both, you know, unity and success?
Yeah, before I answer that, I just want to go back to your bit about having feedback from teammates about how glad they were that you were in the team. And that for me is such a powerful thing, and something that is way more important than any accolade, like externally. That internal recognition from people that really see what goes on day in, day out is amazing. Like I was like, when you were speaking about that, I was beaming inside, and that's something that you should be really proud of. Like genuinely, really, really, really. Yeah, touching on the Rio team. Yeah, it was a team which I think we were all really proud to be a part of. We all felt valued. We all felt listened to. We were super prepared. But that doesn't just come overnight. That was a good nearly 2 years of real digging deep for answers, for the whys, for the hows. So to put it in perspective, I think in the World Cup in 2014, so 2 years before, the team finished next to last, was in all sorts of problems, both on pitch, off pitch. And in the next couple months after that, we transitioned to a new coach. And then that's when some other members of staff came in, being Andrea first, the psychologist. And so probably like September 2014 was the time when like it was a real start of the journey and start of like the building. And we had countless like meetings, talking, finding out about why, what, how, learning, and real like clear session designs from staff to ensure that the learning that we were doing like off the pitch translated to on the pitch, and also real clear and intended comms. Use of language was a big one. So, you know, visions, values, behaviors, lots of people do them, right? And they write them up, put them on a piece of paper, put them on the wall, done. Happy days, done. That's what you do to be part of a successful team. But how do you get to that is a really important process, and that took a long time for us, really long time. But it meant that everybody was contributing to it and everybody felt connected to it, because it was a whole team thing. And then also, how do you get from those words to use it on the training pitch? So the language for that was really deliberate from staff. And once the staff had, this is how I remember it, once the staff like deliberately started to like integrate that into like training environments, whether it be on the pitch, in the gym, players started to do that as well. And then you start to like live it and breathe it as well, rather than it just be, oh yeah, that's just on the paper, in the room next to the pitch in our meeting room.
It's incredible, and such an interesting point, which follows in nicely to my next question, which will kind of circle back to a point that we hit at the start. So just before we wrap up, you know, sometimes to gain a really exceptional result, such as you guys did in Rio, you kind of have to be right at the bottom, right? And break everything down and build from scratch, which is exactly what you did through your values, through your training, through your very specific focus. A very similar journey to what I went on in 2015. I finished 38th at the World Championships, where I needed the top 12 to qualify. And that really hit me, because I was like, I'm running out of time if I want to qualify for Rio. I need to switch things up. So I changed everything about my lifestyle, and I really locked in. And then by the time the next World Cup came around, not only did I get into the top 18 to qualify for my spot for the Games, but I went on to win a World Silver Medal, which was just the most remarkable sequence of events, because I should not have been anywhere near that level at all. But I had prepared so diligently, and I took my opportunity and let it flow. And then once the pressure was off, I was just diving freely and really showing what I could really do, which is, it sounds exactly like what you guys did in Rio. You know, you weren't necessarily the favourites going in, but you got to the final, and then you went in and you beat the world number ones, and probably just played with freedom and real confidence in what you had, which is fantastic. But to circle back, is you had that amazing moment. You had to speak about it over and over and over and over and over again after the fact. And there came a time where you didn't want to speak about it anymore, because you had to look forward to the next one. You needed to start looking forward. But rather than being at the bottom, you were now at the top, and you probably had a bit more of a reputation and a bit more of focus on you. And I would guess there was pressure to repeat the feat in Tokyo. So I understand, you know, after that amazing moment in Rio, you come back, you have that weird period where it feels like it should be amazing, but it's kind of not. How did you get through that, recover, prepare for Tokyo? And, you know, you didn't win a gold medal, but let's be honest, an Olympic bronze medal is still absolutely incredible. What did it take for you guys to maintain that high level all the way through the next cycle, even considering the pandemic?
I think, Yona, we didn't maintain a high level between the cycles. we were really up and down. Really up and down.
Yeah, I was also, actually.
We were sometimes really good, and we were sometimes really bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that cycle was just really inconsistent. So, yeah, going into Tokyo, for the people that just tune into hockey or any Olympic sport every 4 years, they go, oh, reigning Olympic champions, they've got to win again. But we knew, and the hockey world knew, that was going to be an extraordinary feat for us to do that. It really was. It was a completely different team. We'd had a completely different build-up. I remember chatting to my teammates and the girl I shared a room with, like, this Olympics, anything could happen. We could do really, really well and get a medal, or we could flump out at the group stages. We were that inconsistent. But we knew what we did have is we had experience of players and staff, what it took to win at an Olympic level. Mm. We knew that when we were all singing off the same hymn sheet and we did get it right, that we had the ability to do really well and click like it was in our control. So there was a lot of chat about around the Olympics, like, oh, the rivalry, GB are coming to defend their titles. But I mean, we stayed off social media during the Olympics, but even before that, like you'd see bits and bobs. But it was just, for me, it was in one ear out the other, because we were such a different team. It was such a different team. Like, it was so different. So actually, that Olympics, coming away with a bronze medal, I think for me personally is right up there with winning a gold medal, because it was a bit unexpected. You know, we knew we had it in us, but there certainly wasn't the confidence levels before Rio. But yeah, so that bronze medal, sometimes I joke and I like squint if I'm, you know, at school or whatever, I squint and I go, if you squint, it looks like gold. And for me, it does feel like gold, because it was such a good achievement for us to do that. So I went, after Tokyo, I went and played hockey in Holland, in the Netherlands, club season. And they're like notoriously direct, the Dutch people, like, you know, say it how it is. You have to get used to it a bit. Part of me really likes it, part of me doesn't like it. But anyway, I remember turning up.
So I very much got that vibe.
Oh, okay, yes. So you understand. Yeah, I've lived there for like 4 years of my life, so I feel like I get it. Anyway, I went to the club, like, met a coach who I knew from when I was like 22, 23. And he was just like, oh, well, you surprised everybody winning that bronze medal. Nobody thought you would do well. And I was just there like, cheers, thank you. Yeah, well, we did. And here it is.
And if you squint, it looks like gold.
It was, exactly. If you squint, it looks like gold. Yeah, it was a completely different experience to Rio. Just in terms of like, where the team was, and also with COVID as well, like, it was, that extra year certainly helped us. 100%, that really helped us like develop as a team. But yeah, just the experience as an Olympics was so different to Rio. Like it wasn't as enjoyable as Rio, because you weren't allowed to mix with other people, and you had to wear a mask all the time, and everyone was paranoid about getting COVID. You had to do a COVID test every day. So you were on edge until 10 o'clock when your results came back and you were COVID free. So it was just like totally different. And it wasn't as enjoyable, which is a shame, as Rio. Mm-hmm. And I often ask, like, oh, do you have any regrets about your career? Da, 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 da. And one like slight pang is, you know, Paris, so close. Friends and family could go and watch. You could really like get into it. Like no friends. Like my mum and dad came out to Rio, but you know, it was a hefty price to get out to Rio. But Paris was a completely different ball game. And so like when I speak to Olympians that had friends and family came out and they could enjoy it with them, I think, like I didn't get that. And like friends and family are like really important part of my journey. But then I remember like we had the home Commonwealth Games in 2022 in Birmingham, and I got that then, and that was incredible.
Wow. Yeah, I remember I managed to watch one of the diving events in London 2012, and it was like being at I was at a diving competition, but it was like being at a football match.
Crazy.
You know, it was just insanity. So yeah, I can really like imagine that. It's just not, you know, I guess, you know, probably even more so for diving, but you know, to some degree, obviously with hockey as well. Like it's rare to get those really like raucous competitions. So yeah, but I think, and as well, I think just, you know, I just one kind of final question before we sort of wrap this up. And I think just this whole conversation, just like speaking to you, Shona, I feel like, you know, values is something that seems to like really shine through this whole thing. And even then you were talking, you know, one of your biggest pangs was about your friends and your family and not being able to sort of share more time with them in line with your competition. So, you know, I think that's, I don't know, I feel like that's really sort of kind of wonderful messages to hear. But so I just maybe want to just finish this off by asking, and you probably touched on a few ideas up until this point, but right now where you are in your life right now, what's your absolute North Star? Like when you're looking at like what to do or what make choices or the goals for the rest of your life, like what is the one thing that you kind of take as your like primary kind of guiding compass?
Be surrounded by cool people doing cool things. So I've never been a 9-to-5er.
Love that.
I will never be a 9-to-5, I don't think.
Agree.
And having flexibility in my working week is important to me. Yeah, cool people, cool things.
We should probably end this podcast here then, because you probably don't want to spend much more time with Yona and I. Yes.
That's been a pleasure. Chat for hours.
I was just going to say to wrap up. Yeah, I was literally just going to say to wrap up. Like I could talk to you all day because I feel like it's just such good chat and such interesting chat, and I love a deep conversation. So, I honestly could continue this for hours, but I got places to be, so we can't. But Shona, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories, sharing your journeys. Any final points that you'd like to make before we wrap up this main episode?
Just thank you for having me, and I think it's an amazing podcast that you've got going, digging a bit deeper into athletes' lives rather than just the accolades or what they've achieved. And I just want to wish you both the best of luck with it all. Dive Beyond Sport. I'll be subscribing on Spotify and look forward to future episodes.
Yes, we got one. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Shona.
We are diving under the surface, which is essentially what all our sport is about. So it suits us very well. But thank you so much for joining us. It's massively appreciated. If you're listening on Patreon, don't go anywhere because Shona will be sticking around for a little bit longer for one more dive. If you're not there yet, please join us for extra stories, extra content, and you can find the link in the show notes. So we will catch you on the next one. Thank you, Shona.